Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. You know, Henry Wirz is remembered as the commander of the prisoner of war facility in Georgia, Camp Sumter, better known as Andersonville. During its operations between February 1864 and April 1865, about 45,000 Union soldiers were held there and about 13,000 died. Of those who survived the ordeal, a number emerged as no more than human skeletons, suffering from malnutrition and various ailments. Photographs and eyewitness accounts outraged the Northern public and prompted investigations that led to charges leveled against Wirz, a trial that ended in his being found guilty of war crimes and sentenced to death by hanging. You students of the Civil War, I'm sure, have seen the photographs of him being hung in Washington, D.C. This photograph of Wirz is less commonly seen. He was a Swiss-born immigrant who settled in the South and opened a medical practice. He joined the Confederate Army in Louisiana and worked his way from private to captain, joining the staff of Brigadier General John Henry Winder, the officer responsible for prisoner of war camps in the South. Wirz's arrest came as the result of a comment overheard by a Union officer named Captain Henry E. Noyes. He served as an aide to Major General James H. Wilson. Noyes testified what he heard and what he did next at Wirz's trial in Washington, D.C. Noyes relates details of the arrest, the reaction of Wirz's family, a bit of diplomacy on the part of Captain Noyes, and the dangerous journey north as he escorted Wirz to Washington. I want to read the testimony to you. It's riveting. It feels like it's urgent and in the moment, and Noyes tells a good account. He gives a good account of what happened when he first encountered Wirz and then what happened next. So here we go. In Wirz's testimony, or the testimony by Noyes about Wirz. It begins, about the 1st or 2nd of May, 1865, I was ordered by General Wilson to Alabama to take care of news of the repudiation of the Sherman armistice to our forces in Alabama, the nearest command being that of General Grierson, it's Benjamin Grierson, of Eufaula. This is a reference to Sherman's first negotiated surrender with General Johnston that was not favored by President Andrew Johnson, and he sent U.S. Grant to undo it. Wilson helped get the word out through his aides, including Captain Noyes. Noyes continues, on my way there, I passed through Andersonville, where the train, a special one, stopped for food and water. I got out of the train there and walked around. I noticed a crowd collected at Andersonville and saw a number of our men who had prisoners there very sick. They were evidently preparing to go to Macon, where General Wilson had ordered all the sick to be brought. I saw a number of officers and soldiers in Confederate uniform, some of them appearing to have authority. 2 or 3 of them had pieces of paper which they were presenting to the sick men to sign. That first attracted my attention casually. Finally, I got upon the train, and as it was about to start, I heard a remark that attracted my attention. It was to this effect: hurry up and sign these paroles, or you'll die here anyhow. I looked out of the window and saw Captain Wirz. I could not swear that he made the remark which I heard, but I have heard his voice since, and I think it was his voice. As neither Captain Wirz or anybody at Andersonville could have known that the armistice was repudiated, and as it was evident that they were paroling our sick men, I was on the point of getting out of the cars to remonstrate on the subject when the whistle blew and the train started off. The men there were mostly so sick that they had to have men supporting them on each side. Very few of them, if any, could write their names, but simply touched the pen as the paper was presented to them. When I got back to Macon, I reported to General Wilson what I had seen, and he told me I must go there again and arrest Captain Wirz. I left that day or the next, about the 6th of May, and I took a party of men with me. As I had to stay overnight and as there were no accommodations at Andersonville, I went on to Americus, about 10 miles beyond, where I remained overnight, coming back to Andersonville on a freight train the next morning. There, I accomplished my mission. That is, I arrested Captain Wirz and gathered together all the records which I thought important, excepting the hospital records. These I did not take because Dr. Roy said they were not yet complete, and that if I would send him down some clerks, he would see that they were completed. This I agreed to do. The immediate circumstances of Captain Wirz's arrest were these. I went to his house and saw him there. The family were about him, that is, his wife and 2 daughters. It is a very hard thing to take a man from his family, and particularly so in that case, as Mrs. Wirz and one of the daughters at least were crying and having considerable trouble. To pacify them and to do the thing as quietly as I could, I told Mrs. Wirz and also told the captain that they need not distress themselves at all, that on his arrival at Macon, if General Wilson was satisfied that he had done no more than his duty and had simply acted in accordance with his orders, he would probably be released. That was the sum and substance of the conversation. General Wilson did not direct me to make any promise to the prisoner or to give him any safe conduct, and I do not consider that I did. He, Wirz, was conveyed to Macon under guard and remained there under guard. He was not on parole at all. I have no doubt that my conversation might have been construed by those who were very anxious that it should be so into a promise that he would be returned. But I had no doubt in my mind that General Wilson would hold him as a prisoner. I intended to convey to him no promise of safe return, but merely intended to pacify his family and himself. He was very much excited. These are all the circumstances which I remember particularly connected with the arrest. He remained under our headquarter guard until about the 20th of May, when I was ordered to convey him to Washington with all the Andersonville records, including the hospital records, which General Wilson had sent an officer for, and the flags which General Wilson had captured in his campaign through Alabama and Georgia. I had trouble all the way till we came north of the Ohio River on account of our men who had been at Andersonville recognizing the prisoner. I have read in the newspapers that I endangered my life. There is a misconception on that point, but I do not think the prisoner could have got if there had been not an officer in charge of the party. At Chattanooga, I sent to the post prison to be taken care of. That outside of that, he would collect a great crowd. He had good, fair-looking Confederate clothes and a hat, dressed generally. I knew him. All his clothes were off him. He only had a hat, no coat, very dirty shirt, a portion of a pair of pants torn, and shoes. Whenever I got him where there were of our soldiers on guard in order to save him, I had trouble getting him on board the boat at Nashville. I think that but for that and my personal plans, they would have taken him there, and if they him, I did not oppose to it for Washington. It was disguised at Louisville. Appearance, if there was nothing else, would have attracted attention. He said that he had some friends there. Between these friends and myself, we succeeded in getting a complete suit of black and a beaver hat. He also had his face shaved clean, which entirely altered his appearance, so much so that we were not troubled at all after that. I do not think he was recognized after that, although a good many soldiers must have seen him, particularly at Cincinnati. So that's the end of the passage of Captain Noyes talking about the arrest and the transportation of Captain Henry Wirz from Andersonville on to Washington, D.C., and how his life was very much threatened, Wirz's life, very much threatened along the way by Union soldiers who either recognized Wirz or had heard word of his coming through town, the various towns in which they were. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.